Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. You guys are gonna have to forgive me a little bit for the inconsistent upload schedule because I am going to be graduating from university in 2 weeks and things are getting pretty intense. I haven't had much time to focus on my channel, unfortunately, but once I do graduate, I am going to be focusing a lot more on YouTube, and maybe I'll be making another channel as well that's gonna be not Pokemon Go related, but I would like to have a second channel because I really enjoy making videos. But for today, I have some Ultra League battles that I got to play with Marshadow, and I really enjoyed using this Pokemon. Surprisingly, we went positive with Marshadow, which I did not think would happen because it is very squishy and the moveset it has a lot of charged moves to pick from, and it has counter, which is good, but it doesn't have a ghost type charged attack, which if it did have that, I think it would be so much better, but I did enjoy using it. Now, in the beginning, I do flail around a little bit trying to build a team around this thing because I really wanted to run a double ghost and fighter backline, so I wanted to run it with Annihilape, but it was really tricky for me to figure out what to put on the lead because I needed something on the lead that was basically going to be good against fairy types, psychic types, something that was going to be good against flyers as well, and something that was going to be good against Giratina. So you can tell I struggled quite a bit. I had Cresselia on the lead at first, but then I realized that the team is entirely weak to this Galarian Weezing, and also it was very weak to for Alligator, so opposing for Alligators. I was struggling a little bit against them, although my Cresselia had Grass Knot, but in most cases, they were all just shielding, and all of them had Crunch, and they were all getting the defense drop on my Cresselia, so I was getting really annoyed with that. And then I started running my own for Alligator, and that is the team that I end up going 3 positive sets with. They're all 3-2s, so nothing crazy. But I started running my own for Alligator, and the team still has a lot of weaknesses. The team's entirely weak to Tapu Fini, but I mean, if you can draw the Tapu Fini out with the Marshadow, then you should be fine because I'm running it with Thunder Punch, so I was okay with drawing out Tapu Fini. I was using Marshadow as a safe swap to draw opposing for Alligators out and opposing Tapu Finis out. And usually I would be able to land a Thunder Punch. A lot of the 4 Alligators were shielding, but there were a few that I was able to take by surprise, and that was nice. But also the team is entirely weak to Tapu Koko and Zapdos, so those are extremely tricky to deal with. Luckily, I did not see any Zapdoses when I played this team, but I saw a few Tapu Kokos. I was able to take both shields from the Tapu Koko if it was on the lead with for Alligator, and then I would bring in one of my Ghost and Fighter types, and I would usually have to shield once until I could reach a move, take the Tapu Koko out, and then my backline would be able to handle whatever they had in the back. Of course, if they had a Giratina, then I was in a little bit of a tricky situation and I would lose. But for the most part, I enjoyed the team. Would I recommend it? Probably not. It was really difficult balancing 2 Ghost and Fighter types on the same team with a lead that was going to take care of all of their weaknesses. And oh, I should also point out, when I was running that Cresselia lead, I was extremely weak to fire types, especially Skeledirge, Talonflame, and Typhlosion. If I saw those, I was basically not going to be able to do anything against them. But in the end, I decided that Shadow for Alligator lead was the way to go, and like I said, it works out. You'll see the battles in this video. And I should point out something about my ELO. I've been stuck at the same ELO for what feels like 2 weeks. Like I said, I've been focusing a lot on my university work, and when I play GBL, I have been trying to rush through my battles because I want to get them done quickly. I was literally running Double Charm in Remix just to get Stardust. So I haven't been able to climb. Luckily, I haven't dropped too much either, so hopefully in the coming few weeks, I will be able to make a legend push. But for now, I've been talking for way too long. Let's just get into these battles and let's see how Marshadow performs in Ultra League. Okay, this first battle, we saw the Cresselia on the lead. My backline's weak to Cresselia, but I stay in with my Feraligatr up against Cresselia because I know that Feraligatr can take out Cresselia. Now, I bring in my Annihilape because I want my opponent to bring that Cresselia back in. I'm going to go for a Night Slash here, and they let it go and they survive, but it looks like they are going to have their own Annihilape in the back. I'm going to go immediately for the Shadow Ball. I know they have a shield left, but my plan is to use Marshadow as my third shield, catch a Shadow Ball. Okay, thank you, Marshadow, for doing your job there. The Shadow Ball's enough to take the Marshadow out, and we're able to farm their Annihilape down with our Annihilape, have 2 Night Slashes loaded for the Cresselia, take their final shield with the first Night Slash, and then take the Cresselia out with the second Night Slash. GG's to our opponent, and we are going to take that win. That's going to be our first positive set, and I know that last game probably wasn't that exciting, you know, not the best display of Marshadow, but sometimes you just need to use the squishy Pokemon as your third shield, and luckily that Shadow Ball did take it out completely. Otherwise, I would have been in a tricky situation where my opponent might be able to farm me down. Moving on to the next battle, we are going to see a Talonflame lead, and this is exactly why I took Cresselia off the team and replaced it with Feraligatr. Feraligatr is going to be able to handle that Talonflame lead a lot better. Now, I have to try my best to handle this Talonflame with my Feraligatr because my backline is extremely weak to it. But my opponent swaps into Cresselia, and guess what? My backline is also going to be extremely weak to Cresselia. So now I have to handle Cresselia with Feraligatr, and I have to handle the Talonflame with Feraligatr somehow. So I'm going to take my opponent's final shield, and then I am going to swap into my Annihilape. Now I have to go for that Night Slash. I don't know why I didn't go for it, because they reach the Grass Knot and they're able to take our Annihilape out, which is not great for me. But I'm going to bring Feraligatr back in, and my opponent is going to swap immediately into a Registeel. Okay, here's my win condition. I could potentially try to farm this Registeel down completely with Marshadow and have 2 Thunder Punches ready for the Talonflame. Let's see if I'm able to do that. Actually, they're going to go for a Zap Cannon that is going to get us into the red. They bring that Talonflame back in. I'm going to go for this first Thunder Punch, and then I am immediately going to go for that second Thunder Punch. This should be enough to take the Talonflame out, but my opponent's Cresselia is still alive. But guess what? We have a Hydro Cannon ready on our Feraligatr, and this should be enough to take the Cresselia out, and we are going to take that win. That was a really tricky situation where my opponent had a Cresselia in the back, the ultimate Pokemon to destroy my entire team, and they had a Talonflame lead. But we still managed to deal with it pretty well. By the way, if you guys want a good team for Ultra League, if you see when I'm switching between teams, I have a team in the first slot that is Cresselia lead with Shadow Feraligatr and Annihilape in the back. That is a very solid team. I would highly recommend that team. Anyways, moving on to the next battle, we are going to see a Greedent on the lead. I immediately swap into Marshadow, and I draw out a Giratina. Okay, Giratina is absolutely going to destroy our Marshadow, but at least we have that Ice Punch to hit for super effective. 2 is definitely not going to be enough to take this Giratina out. You need 3, and they are going to be able to farm us down, but that's fine. It's just Giratina altered. It doesn't have any hard-hitting moves, so I can bring in Feraligatr and go for a full farm down up against Giratina, of course taking 2 Dragon Claws, but that's fine. Now, at least I'll have the energy for the Greedent that's going to come back in, but I am not going to throw my move immediately. Instead, I am going to store it and swap into my Annihilape. Now, it looks like they are going to have a Steelix in the back. Okay, so 2 Pokemon left that are going to be weak to fighters, but my opponent still has 2 shields as well. I probably should have gone for a Night Slash on that first move. I'm going to go for a Night Slash here, and they no-shield it, and it does a very laughable amount of damage. But these Psychic Fangs are debuffing us, and I managed to bring in Feraligatr and go for a Hydro Cannon here and take my opponent's final shield. And at this point, honestly, I'm not sure how I'm going to win this. My opponent swaps out into their Greedent, and I decide that because it's still really healthy, I have to land a Hydro Cannon on the Greedent. We CMP tie on the move, which is really good for me. That means the Greedent is going to be energy dry. However, they undercharge their move, which is really smart. That way they can get the 2 mudshots off, and now they are at a body slam up against their Annihilape, but I am going to be able to throw back-to-back Night Slashes to take this Greedent out. I don't know how the game let me do this because I'm pretty sure that was CMP tie, and the Greedent should have been able to throw that body slam against our Annihilape. But I was able to throw those back-to-back Night Slashes, take their Greedent out, and then somehow I lift a Dragon Tail from the Steelix, and I was able to counter them down. Really unfortunate for my opponent. They must have lagged a turn. Otherwise, I shouldn't have won that. On to the next match. We see a Registeel lead. I immediately swap into my Marshadow, and we draw out a Feraligatr. This is exactly what I want my Marshadow to do. And I'm going to go for these Thunder Punches up against this Feraligatr. I decide to shield once because I know that I can reach another one. They shield their first one, they don't shield the second one, but unfortunately, it's not enough to take them out. They live in the red, but I am going to be able to bring in my Feraligatr and farm them down. My opponent brings that Registeel back in, and I swap into Annihilape, and they have Cresselia in the back. This is not looking good for me. I go immediately for that Shadow Ball, and they use their final shield. Smart on them, but I am not going to invest any shields into my Annihilape. I should go for another Shadow Ball, but I thought my opponent would try to take me out with a Grass Knot, so I went for a Night Slash. I'm able to reach a second Night Slash as well. And now the Cresselia should be in Hydro Cannon range, so I'm going to bring in Feraligatr, go immediately for that Hydro Cannon, take the Cresselia out, and now I have to deal with a Registeel that is still very healthy. I'm going to shield this first Zap Cannon, but I think we got the attack drop there. I have 2 Hydro Cannons loaded back to back. I'm going to go for this first one, and 2 is not going to be enough to take this Registeel out. They are going to be able to reach a move up against her Feraligatr. It's going to be the Zap Cannon, and it is going to be enough to take her Feraligatr out, and unfortunately, we're not going to be winning that. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to see that Greedent lead again, swapping immediately into our Marshadow, and we draw out that Giratina again. I'm going to go for these Ice Punches, but this time I have a little bit of an energy lead on my Marshadow, so I might be able to reach 3. No, they go for the Shadow Sneak. In my last game, they went for Dragon Claw, but this time they are going to go for the Shadow Sneak to take us out. So I was still able to reach 2 Ice Punches at least, get it into the red, and into a range where I can comfortably farm it down with our Feraligatr. I have a lot of energy on Feraligatr, but I swap immediately into Annihilape because I had a feeling my opponent was going to go for that Body Slam. So we managed to catch that, but my opponent has a Charmer in the back. I'm going to go for a Shadow Ball here, and they no-shield it. Okay. I can bring in Feraligatr here, but I mean, there's not much I can do because my opponent's Greedent is still super healthy. I'm going to go ahead and top left because, yeah, I was not winning that. On to the next match, we're going to see another terrible lead. This time it's going to be Poliwrath. I swap immediately into my Marshadow, and we draw out that Feraligatr, but this time they don't shield our Thunder Punch. We're able to land it, and I have a feeling I can counter them down, so I'm going to go ahead and shield my Marshadow, counter this Feraligatr down, and hopefully I can align my Annihilape to their Poliwrath. But my opponent brings in a Typhlosion, and uh-oh. This thing has access to Thunder Punch now. They go ahead and they shield, and they manage to farm our Marshadow down. They have a lot of energy now on this Typhlosion, and all I can do is bring in my Feraligatr and take the Thunder Punch from it. They even managed to catch our Hydro Cannon. I should have known that they were going to do that, but I think Typhlosion wins CMP over Feraligatr, so I went immediately for the Hydro Cannon. I really need to get that final shield that they have out of the way. I'm gonna go for a Shadow Ball here, and my opponent surprisingly doesn't shield. Now it's gonna be Typhlosion versus my Annihilape. all I can do is hope that I get a boost here. That way I could potentially do enough damage with the counters to then come in with my Feraligatr and Shadow Claw this Typhlosion down. We live with 1 HP, so we're able to sneak in one more counter, and that's all we needed to get the Typhlosion low enough so that we could Shadow Claw the Typhlosion down, take that win, and that is going to be another positive set with Marshadow. Finally, we got someone to no-shield the Thunder Punch because I was really losing hope on Marshadow being able to land any Thunder Punches. But hey, we got one in at least. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to see another terrible lead of Registeel. I immediately swap into my Marshadow and we draw out that Feraligatr. Hopefully they don't shield the Thunder Punch. They don't. We're able to land it, and now we can counter their Feraligatr down. I'm going to go ahead and shield my Marshadow, and now I should have alignment the way I want it. Okay, let's see what they bring in. They bring in a Tapu Fini. They already saw that I have Thunder Punch, so I'm expecting them to shield this. They don't shield it, and I am going to be able to reach another Thunder Punch as well. This should take a shield from them. Okay, I guess they don't want to shield any of the Thunder Punches. I'm not sure what my opponent expected me to have in the back, but as soon as they see the Annihilape, they go ahead and they top left because they basically let their Tapu Fini go, and Annihilape was going to destroy Registeel. Of course, if my opponent had saved that Tapu Fini, it would have destroyed both Feraligatr and Annihilape, and I think my opponent would have had a chance to win that. But it worked out for us in the end. Anyways, moving on to the next match, we're going to see another terrible lead of Poliwrath, and I swap into my Marshadow, and this time my opponent stays in. They even take the Thunder Punch from our Marshadow. They go for a Scald. I'm not going to shield anything, and then they swap into that Feraligatr. I go for a Thunder Punch, and I manage to take a shield from them, but now our Feraligatr is going to be aligned to theirs. I decide to shield the first Crunch. Okay, that's a good call on my end. At least it was the Crunch, and at least we didn't get debuffed. I'm gonna go for a Crunch of my own. I get the debuff at least, and I decide to double shield my Feraligatr. Okay, I'm going all shields down, and my opponent is going to have a Guzzlord in the back. I bring in Annihilape, take a Crunch here, and they're staying in. This is good for me. I'm gonna go for a Night Slash here, and hopefully I can get a boost. Oh my gosh, we actually get the boost. I probably would not have won this if I didn't get the boost. I'm able to reach another Night Slash as well, take my opponent's final shield, and now they are in a range where I can take them out with Hydro Cannon. Gonna farm up a lot of energy on my Feraligatr, go for a Hydro Cannon here, and I will be able to reach a Hydro Cannon up against their Poliwrath as well. It's not gonna be quite enough to take them out, but I should be able to Shadow Claw them down and take that win. That boost on the Night Slash came in clutch, let me tell you. When your opponent gets a boost, it is very, very annoying. But when you get the boost, it's really satisfying. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to see a terrible lead of Venusaur. I swap into Marshadow, just hoping it would stay in, but they swap out into Tapu Fini. Okay, it's not looking good for us at all because that Venusaur is going to destroy my entire team. I decide to let this Nature's Madness go because I need the shields for the Venusaur. So my plan is bring in Feraligatr, don't shield anything, and just go for a full farm down up against the Tapu Fini and have a ton of energy stored on the Feraligatr. My opponent doesn't bring the Venusaur back in. They bring in their own Feraligatr, and I go for a Crunch immediately, but I swap out into my Annihilape. Now it is going to be Annihilape versus Venusaur. I am going to go ahead and bait twice with the Night Slashes, and hopefully I can get their shields out of the way. I know I'm not going to be able to outpace the Venusaur, but I just need my Annihilape to survive one Frenzy Plant for me. I'm going to go ahead and bait here with the Night Slash, and then I should be at the Shadow Ball here. Hopefully I survive the Frenzy Plant. We tap the Shadow Ball immediately, but guess what? They catch it on their Feraligatr. Really unfortunate for me. And now this Crunch is just not going to be enough to take the Venusaur out. They're going to be able to farm us down, and then they're also going to be able to take our Annihilape out, and we are going to take a loss there. I needed to just be a little bit patient and then I might have been able to win this because I really needed to land that Shadow Ball on the Venusaur. But that was a really tough situation for me. That was going to be a team that was absolutely a direct hard counter to my team. They had Feraligatr, they had Venusaur, and they had Tapu Fini. I was not going to win that. But hey, I'm happy I was able to make that really close. Moving on to the final battle of the video, there was one more battle in this set that I lost, but I chose to leave it out because I faced a lot of lag in that battle. I felt like the game was being really unfair to me, and I just didn't feel like commentating on it. It frustrated me a lot, and we're just not going to talk about it. Alright, moving on to this final battle, we saw that Greedent on the lead swap into our Marshadow and we draw out a Tentacruel. This is really good because we are going to be resisting those poison jabs and we have Thunder Punch to hit for super effective. Now, unfortunately, this next Thunder Punch is not enough to take their Tentacruel out, so I'm not able to get alignment, but my opponent gives me alignment because they swap into their Greedent, and now I can bring Annihilape to handle it, and I'm not sure if this was intentional from my opponent or if it was a mistake. They might have something in the back that probably doesn't like Annihilape, which is why they swapped. But we'll see. I'm going to go for this Night Slash, and my opponent shields, so they definitely do not want whatever they have in the back to see Annihilape. They bring in Tentacruel, and for some reason they let me farm them down, and then they top left. We're never going to find out what they have in the back, but I guess it was really weak to Annihilape. I am not sure what it could be. Oh well, we'll never know. But with that win, we get our third positive set with Marshadow in the Ultra League, and that is going to bring us to the end of our video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like my content, please consider subscribing, maybe leave a like. It helps me out so much, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!